Ladies and gentlemen, here's another potential problem that can impact the food supply chain. Now, over the last few weeks, we heard about the meat packing plants and the workers there getting sick. And now, hundreds of farm workers are testing positive for COVID 19. Many remain unprotected. And of course, they're doing just like the meat packing plant workers did. They are striking and they're demanding PPE and, these folks that own the farm to do a much better job in protecting them while they're out there working. And just looking at this picture, you can see how close together they have to work in order to do their jobs. So this came out on Civil Eats, May 13th, 2020. At the end of April, 71 fruit tree workers at a large orchard in central Washington state were tested for COVID-19. None showed any symptoms of the novel coronavirus except for 4 with a mild cough, but more than half tested positive. And the farm turned out to be one of the first confirmed clusters of the virus among agricultural workers. The laborers were mostly guest workers from Mexico who were brought to the state of Washington with H-2A visa program. They are believed to have caught the virus in the U.S. despite the fact that their employer, Stemet AG Services, one of the largest AG labor employers, had from the start implemented extensive safety measures to minimize the risk. While farm workers are at risk for COVID-19 due to their living and working conditions, until recently, relatively few have tested positive for the virus. To health officials, the labor advocates, the Stemet case signal that the virus may be more widespread in the agricultural industry than is being reported. It also showed that the guidelines from preventing coronavirus spread in agriculture, most of them voluntary measures, are likely insufficient. Stemet has actively implemented social distancing, symptom monitoring, and other recommended COVID control measures at its work and housing sites. Wow. What these test results tell us is that asymptomatic cases are so common that these measures are not sufficient in these settings, even when implemented well. The company told Civil Eats that after the outbreak, it has continued to adopt all recommendations from federal and state agencies and has intensified its sanitation and social distancing measures. But Edgar Franks, political director of a farm worker union in Washington state, says most agricultural employers are not nearly as scrupulous, and many aren't taking the necessary precautions because it's all about money. But see, if the labor force gets sick to the point where they can't be out there working, a lot of these farms will be in trouble. So, meat shortage, that's just the beginning. I haven't seen much enforcement of existing guidelines in the field, said Franks. No social distancing, no giving out masks, too little spacing between rows and trees, and everyone huddling close together during crew meetings. Labor advocates warn that the virus could severely impact agriculture as tens of thousands of workers across the country take to the field when harvest season begins this summer. And while no one is counting exactly how many farm workers have contracted the virus in recent weeks, several COVID-19 hotspots have come to light, revealing how the agricultural system could expose workers' lives to the disease. Workers have been designated essential workers by the Department of Homeland Security, and they continue to report to work. And while working outside puts them at less risk than if they were in a meat packing facility, labor advocates say these workers are very vulnerable to the virus because they often work in close proximity, live in cramped housing conditions, and commute to the fields in crowded vans and buses. Many also have pre existing conditions, and some have no sick leave or health insurance. In Washington, a major agricultural region, one of the rare localities where the city health district publicly track farm worker COVID-19 cases. At least 240 people who work in the food and agriculture industry have tested positive for coronavirus, with more than 1,600 confirmed cases and nearly 60 deaths in the country. I'm sorry, in the county, has the highest COVID-19 rate in all of the West Coast counties, while people in long-term care facilities account for about a third of the county cases. Health experts say the large agricultural workforce is the main driver. Wow. Wow. I mean, I just don't know how these people are going to continue to hold up. You're talking about one state. You're talking about one state. There's a lot of farm laborers in multiple states around the country. So if you see it here, it's got to be in all the other locations too. Okay. Oregon's Marion County, which is the heart of the agriculturally rich Willamette Valley, also has the highest COVID-19 infection rate in the state. And while the county doesn't release data about the employment of people testing positive, the two towns with the highest infection rates, Woodburn and Gervais, are also the center of the state's farm worker population. San Joaquin Valley, one of the nation's largest agricultural production areas, a rise in positive coronavirus cases in rural towns has led congressional leaders to urge the National Institute of Health and Governor Gavin Newsom to prioritize COVID-19 testing for farm workers and others in the food industry. And in Monterey County, known as America's Salad Bowl, health officials have reported that dozens of farm workers have been infected. AG workers comprise of 35% of the county's cases. Karen Smith, a spokesperson for the county health department, told Civil Eats last week it received 750,000 masks from the state specifically for these workers. It also added 2 new community testing sites, but the outbreaks haven't been contained to the West Coast. In upstate New York, 169 of 340 workers at Green Empire Farm, a giant greenhouse that grows strawberries, tomatoes, and cucumbers, tested positive for the virus earlier this week. Although 2 were hospitalized, the vast majority of the workers, most of whom are guest workers from Mexico, Haiti, and other countries, are asymptomatic, health officials told Civil E. The outbreak occurred despite the fact that they claim they took safety measures, including mandatory face covering, social distancing, and sanitizing. So despite taking all of those measures, people still were infected. Most of the workers who live in hotels, multiple workers to a room, are being quarantined there, said Samantha Field, Madison County Health Department spokesperson. In New Jersey, 59 migrant workers at an unidentified farm in Salem County tested positive for the virus. Thousands of foreign guest workers arrive to the area every year for spring and summer harvests. In response, a local health center has launched testing for farm workers in tents at various farm and in mobile testing vans. Local health officials said they are planning more tests. And in North Carolina, farm workers at several strawberry farms also tested positive, including 8 at Rudd Farms, which had mandated the use of gloves and masks for workers and implemented a drive-through service for customers. Farm, which has temporarily closed at the end of April, is back in business. Labor advocates say that it's likely that this list of known cases is only the tip of the iceberg. Many workers don't report feeling ill because they can't afford to miss 2 or 3 weeks of work. Said Marley Monticello, a spokeswoman for the Florida-based Coalition of Workers, an organization, and they know of the farm worker COVID-19 who is hospitalized on a ventilator. And we don't have a long list of workers who have tested positive, Monticello said. Up until last week, the threshold of getting a test was very high. The group has been pushing for more testing, and the state finally opened a new testing site. Last week, Monticello said she hoped that the farm workers who test positive will receive the care and economic support they need. They're feeding all of us, and they deserve so much better, Monticello said. Yeah, I bet they do. Wow. And in California, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that required those who employ more than 500 food sector workers to provide up to 80 hours of paid sick leave to workers affected by COVID-19. The order is significant for farm workers because California's agricultural operations tend to employ thousands of workers. Now we need to make sure the law is real, that it's enforced, and that workers know about it. If the workers don't ask for the leave, the employers won't volunteer it. Wow. Labor advocates say guidelines are not enough to protect workers. Some workers have gone on strike asking for more safety measures, including most recently at Allen Brothers Fruit, a Washington State packing house. In mid-April, 2 farm worker unions, UFW, sued the state of Washington for mandatory, stringent, and enforceable rules. The lack of enforceable rules regarding social distancing, protective face masks, access to soap and water, And environmental cleaning allows conditions to continue in which the virus can spread easily and quickly. Wow. And that puts their lives in danger. And again, if these farm workers continue to get sick by the hundreds and thousands out here across the country, you may have another major problem with empty shelves in your stores. And you know what? This just go to show you, just like the essential workers are getting sick, this is definitely a roadmap to when you get back in your confined office buildings where everybody is working and you're all close together. Do you know the same thing is going to happen to you when you're around each other every day? I don't care what kind of social distancing they do in these corporations, people are going to always get this thing. So, y'all, please tell me what you think. Just like the meat plant workers are impacted, so are your farm laborers. And these folks that own the farms, they can't even work their own farms. The same ones that got high IQs and call everybody else lazy. Yeah, they can't even work their own farms. So if these laborers are not out there, then they lose their entire crop. And I've done stories on that too in the past when COVID wasn't even going on. And, if these workers don't show up, they lose everything. They're losing crops, $2, $3, and $4 million crops, just burning out in the sun and just rotting. But please tell me what you think, y'all. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.